Hi, Anti-Society! Welcome back to the Antisocial Planet, and today we are checking out Dreamcatcher's Apocalypse music video trilogy thing. Now, these are music videos that I have already seen, and we checked out the songs and watched the music videos, but I was asked to kind of go back and rewatch these and focus in on storyline stuff, because especially with Vision, because that was like the first comeback for me of becoming a fan of the group, that I really wasn't focusing in on storyline stuff. I was just like, I'm here to enjoy being part of a comeback and to just get to see the music video and hear the songs. So I've been asked to go back through these and just to get to focus in on storyline stuff and talk about the connections that I see between the different music videos. It's going to be fun to just relax and go back through these, and excited to see what I take out of it now that I'm looking at it through the lens of trying to analyze some of the storyline and imagery and stuff. Storyline. This one is like the freshest in my head because I just checked it out. Ish. Okay, so we're coming through a portal like a superhero. I remember this. See, okay. I feel like we had the masks at another point too. It does make me think of Umbrella Academy though. Side note. Ugh, it's unfair, the styling in this music video. Okay, one thing I did notice is that, okay, we have a bunch of buildings down, a bunch of like wreckage, but there's also buildings that are fine. And I was thinking of the building that we had at the very beginning is like a skyscraper. It's like a taller building and it's totally fine, which I think also, given that later in this music video, we have Sua's scene where she's at, it's almost like a boardroom, right? Which is like a long table where there's a bunch of people who look very high up and authoritative, right? So that contrast between Dreamcatcher being on the ground where there's a bunch of like wreckage and rubble and carnage from this disaster, in contrast to these like skyscrapers and like taller buildings where they seem like unaffected by what's going on. Also love the coloring shift here, like the blue sky behind and then this like red smoke around this statue, which is also interesting. Statues have had a few different ways in the music videos as well. Ooh, I mean, sure. I didn't mean to rewind, but you know what? Chains as well. See, okay, I also think it's really interesting that we have the older like architecture too, like clearly this like separation between, I don't know, some kind of like dimension or whatever, because we have the portal at the beginning and then we have this scene of being in this almost like marble setting that comes up like a few different times. So again, like almost like Dreamcatcher coming through as like heroes of some kind, but also looks like we have, I don't really know what it almost looks like crowns, or I don't know if it's supposed to just be like interesting architecture in this, because again there is like this separation between the regular person and people in power and authority, which I think is interesting as we go through the music videos. Not to get like too far ahead, you get into something like Vision, right, which is I can give you a vision, right, whereas like this is, hey, clearly we need help with this. Clearly there is a disaster happening around us that is going to affect everybody. We need people in places of like authority to care about this, and they're not, because it's not going to affect them first, right? It's going to affect people who are closer to the ground, right? It's going to affect people who don't have the privileges of being able to afford to circumvent the like climate disasters and stuff like that, right? And then you get into Vision, which is, here is the idea, here's the vision, here is the action step going forward. And again, like having a bunch of like CGI and stuff in this one too, like I need her to not smile at me like that. Sua, ma'am. I'm here for storyline. I still love this image. Like, I think it's so cool. I talked about it in my full like reaction, but this being stuck in a well, right? Which is such a, again, I don't know, is it like a South Korean phrase where it's like something, but it's like the story of being stuck in a well is that like you think that's your whole world, right? Because you're stuck in that contained space and being unaware of what else is going on. And again, like this difference of authority and people in power and like wealth inequity of wanting people to be like, hey, please someone fight for us, and having this image of what it feels like to be stuck in a well and having all of these faces pointing inward, but also having their hands out, right? There's this feeling of almost like begging or asking for something or needing that like reaching out, but also being turned inward, being stuck in this confined space. And also the white we've had contrast before of like formal clothing, more like feminine clothing contrasting with more like grungy styles. So having Gayan in this like white gown and in these like marble settings that are very more like antiquity feeling in comparison to them with like a darker, almost like leather outfits, right, on the ground within the wreckage, but also having like grass and like plant life that is also almost like the hope sprouting through at the same time. Did I go back for Sua? Maybe. Ugh, this scene lives in my head. Oh my god, that scene. I can't help it. Okay, are we gonna go back? Yes. But also the darkness of it too, like the isolation of being in this like tech setting too, being in a place that again seems like unaffected by what's going on, full of technology, full of access to knowing what's going on in the world. Even the like guards to it, I think, are like robotic, right? So having all of this technology introduced and all of this like power that comes along with that, and also contrasting that with what it is like to actually be on the ground where the rest of the members are, being in the wreckage, being within that destruction, and also being like where nature is, right? Literally being grounded in like dirt and grass and plants and all of that, and instead being this very like sterile tech dark place, right? And using that to like, get the message out. I love that contrast with all of the blue light coming from the screens and then showing the image of the like wildfires and having that like those reds and orange contrasting through, and also the like danger singles, right? When we see like reds, that usually means that there's something that is like meant to grab our attention, meant to signal that there's some kind of danger, and having them like take control of the message that is going forward. That shifting color again. Cool tones to warm tones. Oh my god. Xian. I had a different thought there. Besides just Xian. But also that scene there, now we're having like the darker coloring coming through as we're having like the cloud cover and kind of the shift. Again, nature is going to affect everyone, especially with weather. Think of like rain and storms and all of that. Sky, right? It doesn't matter, like I was saying before, but like the skyscrapers being above everyone and seemingly less affected. I know that there are some skyscrapers that were also like crumbling, but there's like these places of people in these places of authority not being affected, not having their environment destroyed around them, supposedly. But nature, like weather, also comes from like the sky above all of that, right? You can't escape it just by building higher up. If storms and rain and all of that is coming at everybody, it's going to also get people no matter how high up they are. So I love that we get the darker coloring here also in this place with the marble like columns and all of that, that also has this like darker shadow like falling over it, but also destruction of the pillars and stuff, right? Like it wasn't free from destruction. The strut though. Available. I love how they leave the marble there, which also is like wealth, but also it feels like there's like cracks and fissures just like waiting to happen with the way that like marbling happens. Like the instability there, it seems like, yeah, there's actually like cracks in it. This seems so cool, like the almost like demonic people there. Ooh, see, okay, first off, we're getting like some of the superpowers coming through. I knew we had the portals, but that is like something that kind of continues forward with some of the other music videos. Getting like a little bit more of that very explicitly said with Sua there. We had like a little bit with Gayan with the card. Love that scene again at the table with all of the people in like suits, but they have like, the animal heads, which seems very reminiscent of, I don't know, like I compared it to like gods. There's lots of depictions of gods where they aren't given like human faces because like gods are not humans and they're thought to be like something like greater and above. Like you couldn't depict their faces. I'm thinking like specifically with like ancient Egypt, but it's also through like other cultures where like you couldn't depict a god's face because it was like beyond our comprehension or whatever, right? So I love some of that coming through of this god imagery in tandem with like corporate imagery, right? And the contrast between those and Sua coming through and like landing like in the table in the middle of it and disrupting that. But also this with the statue seems very reminiscent of the statues in the that we had with Gayan with the hands out, and that shift from something that seems very like a beautiful piece like statue that is there, and then this like taint coming through and changing it right into something more morbid, right? Almost like Grim Reaper. More of the powers coming through. I love those layered vocals too. I do think it's interesting that we end with them being in that like marble setting as opposed to being on the ground. But again, I don't really trust timelines when it comes to Dreamcatcher music videos and storyline related stuff. It could definitely be almost like reversing the clock too, like again dealing with something that is about environmental issues and climate change and all of that, saying, hey, this is a possibility of what could happen and we're on track to have happen. Let's go back to before that and circumvent it happening, especially with a lot of the images coming through of them being in that like marble setting. You can see all the cracks and fissures and like the floor and the pillars, and you can see that destruction is like going to reach there. Having the one scene where they're dancing, and it has happened, right? Like it's ruins around them, which is an image that they have in a few different music videos. So it's saying, hey, this isn't something that isn't going to affect you for long, right? You can sit there in your ivory tower and pretend that it's not affecting you, but eventually it will. It's going to affect everyone. We all live on the same planet. So it might be like a turning back the clocks a little bit. I don't know. I feel like I will cement more of my thoughts as we go through the music videos. Vision, which I may or may not have been blasting this morning. Just living my life like you do. I'm excited for this one because this was like my first comeback getting into Dreamcatcher. And have I watched this music video since? Yes. Have I listened to the song a lot since then? Also yes. But it'll be fun to go through it in a like, not it's just like having it on and having a good time, and instead like actually zooming in and like comparing and having, I don't know if I've definitely watched it in some capacity since I checked out Maison. Anyway, like getting more of the story as opposed to just like vibing. Ugh, the red outfits. But again, like destruction, military imagery as well. It seemed like some of the screens were similar to the previous ones too. I mean, this outfit though. Okay. No, again, getting look, these outfits live in my head all the time. These like red with black accent, like military style outfits. It's a lot. But I love the contrast between these settings of this performance space of them in the red outfits and then being like in the wreckage again. We've got some different color coding coming through, which is definitely something that I noticed earlier, but bringing it forward, like we have this magenta color with Sua, which is definitely, I feel like something that we had like with her power, right? In Maison, there was like this kind of magenta color to that one. We had like greens with Dieu with the smoke behind her. Where the smoke's here with her gorgeous pink hair. I'm sorry, I just clocked. Getting distracted. Great like contrast again though with the color palette, and also getting like the reds, like I was saying before, reds having this like attention grabbing warning danger signal to them. So I like that they're like wearing the warning now and having the flags with the Dreamcatcher like symbol on it also being like call to arms and having the more like militaristic like outfits, and then some of the choreography as well. They have some of those like formations that almost feel like band marching formations. Also like the teardrop. Oh, it says peace. Ugh. Sorry, I know I'm interrupting, I know. But I love that we have like a piece in the background as well, and it's in a blue comparison to the reds. That contrast in the colors. One of my other thoughts. Oh, we have like more like rubble here, right? It seems like there's been more destruction layered on top of the destruction that we saw in Maison. Got distracted by visuals. Not important, not important. Focus. There's something else that I noticed besides just, you know, beauty and all of that. Oh, the loudspeaker. Them like before saying, hey, please someone fight for us, and wanting someone in a position of power and authority to step up and to help them with this kind of panic, and seeing that there's so many like catastrophes that they can see coming forward, right? Like they can see the disaster coming forward at them, and them like stepping into that like boardroom setting and trying to get people to pay attention and be on their side. And then this one, them having the like military style outfits, the flags that are like their flags, their symbol, and then having the loudspeaker being them taking control of that, especially with the lyrics of I'll show you a vision. I'm going to be the one to show you what the possibilities are going forward. Also, I just noticed we have this sign that's two turns in like opposite directions, right? Like a fork in the road, a decision to be made. Ugh, Xian. The crown again. Ooh, I was also, okay, before we get into Dami with her screens again, in like the control of everything, it's almost like she got control of it in Maison and she's like still manning it a little bit, or has like her own kind of setup maybe. But also like with the abilities, right? Because we have we've got like the magenta kind of power that Sua was showing. Gayan had the card that she was levitating, but she also had the almost like weird like prism thing as well. Then we had the levitating rubble with Dio, and I know that we have some electricity and stuff with Xian, right? Because am I remembering Bon Voyage correctly? And then it's Handong seems like she has more of like the portals. I'm trying to remember where everyone's abilities were. But Dami also has some of the levitation because she was lifting up the robotic guard people things. Anyway, I'm just trying to sort through power set. We might have thunder with Yuyan too, because she has the lyric about thunder. Ooh, sorry. Just like the power of like before when we had the screen shift, it was like wildfires, right? Maison was a focus on climate related things. And then in this one we have like military, which is, again, we have some military imagery in the outfits and in some of the sound and some of the choreo in this, as let's organize a collective force in order to fight for what we believe in. But I also think that it says a lot about the state of the world if we're going to talk about stuff going on that is like not great for humanity or for people, or especially for people of a lower class. War and conflict is probably there. When I say that as somebody who I was born and raised in a military based town, literally everybody is connected to the military base. You either work there, you're related to someone who works there, or it's been like passed down from like generation to generation. I have family who are currently working military, who have worked military, who have gone through a bunch of ranks in it. That's just my upbringing, being surrounded by that. And a lot of the reason that people I know get into military stuff is because it's opportunity, right? It's you get to go to school, you get guaranteed like jobs, you get benefits, you get security for your family and the people that you care about, you get the like structure of it. And for a lot of people that I know, having that stability of being in the military, even if it means like being deployed and having to do actual active service, it's a way of enjoying that stability. Like usually the other option is like working trades, and that is doesn't have the same doesn't have the same stability or benefits or possibilities for making something of yourself. I know a lot of people because we have a military college who go through military stuff just because it's an option for post-secondary that they wouldn't have otherwise. So I think that it becomes an issue. I know it's different for South Korea because they have like mandatory military and all of that, so it's a whole other conversation with their what it's like for military within their culture and what their experiences are of it. But majority of the people I know, I think upwards of like half or more of my graduating class in high school went military after, because it was a way of actually being able to afford it. And I think that it just causes this divide between people who have, again, wealth and power and authority and those who don't. And the people who have to actually fight the wars are not the people who start them or want them to happen. So I think that it's powerful to have that image in here as well. Am I maybe pulling too much out of it? Perhaps. But that's what we're here for. We're here to make too much of their storylines, right? She's like in some kind of infiltration, yeah. I love that lyric too, like, gonna get you karma. Hey, you can say that you don't care about this now, but eventually it's gonna come back and get you. Again, like I was saying before, of like people in positions of power being like, oh, this doesn't affect me yet, but it will. We all live on the same planet. We all have to deal with the same issues, right? Like you can sit back and say, oh, that's not my problem, but it will be if you don't do anything, right? If you don't step in and you don't help, or you don't try to circumvent these huge, big, like world affecting issues that are going on, eventually it will affect you, right? I always love that lyric when it comes on. That gonna hunt you too? Yeah, we got some thunder with her too. I was like the lyric. And that outfit too. I love that clock motion too. Ooh. She has space there though. Ooh. Can we also talk about, can we talk about, not only visuals, but like the light in her eyes looking like a cross? That's cool. I don't know if I ever clocked that before. Almost like divine intervention, you know? I guess she has the cross earring. And like nature kind of stepping in, right? Evening things out, karma. I love the action hero of this. Oh, I love that I'll give you a vision and all the screens that she had too. Look, I know we're about to get into the drop, but I also just love that scene of them at the podium, like speaking like at a press conference, right? Not only is that, again, like going back to this megaphone that they had before, but also, again, them using their platform to speak out. Like I was saying, it's not common for anyone to write a full song just in their discography, or like organically within their discography, that is about climate issues, let alone to make it like a lead single with a music video and like a whole promotional cycle, right? Because that was like the single for their whole album and they were performing it, and like it has choreo and it has performance videos and all of that. So it was a huge push for their message forward, and them recognizing that them as idols and seeing them in the outfits that feel very in line with being idols, being performers, them using that platform, understanding that they have a voice and what it means to have that responsibility, right? See, with the cross in her eyes there too. Love that, like, posting the message everywhere. Ooh, I was just thinking too, because we have the greens, which I pointed out before. This almost looks like cemetery, right? With the flowers and like the tombstones of saying, again, ruin, destruction, all of these like landscapes. There aren't other humans, right? Like there's the performance with them where they have like backup dancers, and that's the only people that are in this, right? We have kind of the robotic guards that have shown up, but there aren't people around, right? So having the like graveyard there is very important, but also having the green smoke. Usually green is associated with like greed, right? So I think that's interesting to have this kind of like green smoke within the destruction. Again, if we're talking about that contrast of power and authority, a lot of the time people who have all the wealth are the ones who get to make decisions about things that affect everyone else, and it's not always for the benefit of those people. Am I being like a little too cynical? Maybe. It's rarely for the people who don't have wealth. Let's just be honest. Yeah, another statue like before. Ugh, I love the choreo for this song too. And then like ending at rest too is, I remember all the way back when I first checked it out, I was like, ending at rest is again a really cool thing too, of bringing some of that military imagery. Love that like drawing out that vision at the end, both in terms of the choreo and with the vocal performance. But having the statue there, again, like a different statue, statues continuing to be part of it instead of having the clasped hands in front of them and it like transforming into this like Grim Reaper character. We have the wings and the spread arms getting maybe into like Lady Justice and all of that, and that is something that kind of continues forward. But also like the angelic imagery, having like the cross look in their eyes, maybe that's just like the light that they were using and the angle, but I think that it's interesting to bring in again that almost like biblical feeling, both in terms of biblical disasters or like things that affect on a large scale, but also like I was saying, like heavenly intervention of both the power set that we have with Dreamcatcher, right, coming through with like superpowers, and but also talking about karma within the lyrics, right, saying, hey, you might not care about this right now, but eventually this is all going to affect everybody. And I said it in my first reaction to Maison, Mother Nature does not care, right? Mother Nature is going to try and right the scales and balance everything out and does not care what gets caught in the way of it accomplishing that. So it's going to affect everyone, and it's going to have almost this feeling of a biblical disaster, right? I think that interesting to have all of that imagery mixed in as well, and none of the kind of marble ancient civilizations feeling, like almost like Greek Roman imagery that we had in Maison, which I also think is interesting, whether or not that has been completely destroyed or it's like this shifting away. We have more of the military, almost like bunker feeling to some of this instead. But it's so cool to go back and actually look at this music video and like properly think about it after going through the rest of their discography since then. I still get shivers when I listen to the song. It's just, it's so good. The vocals, ugh. Yeah, I'm like, we have more nature imagery in this one. And a much more uplifting feeling to the music. I just saw Tia's smile. She's so cute. Ooh, I think it's so interesting that we have the flowers blooming. We have much brighter coloring, some of the floral imagery coming through with like a wallpaper handang, and in some of the costume outfits. I'm sorry, when I say costumes, people they get mad at me about stuff. I'm like, it's just my theater background coming through. I'm sorry. Outfits, but also having these places of like ruin, but then also rebuilt. The gem as well is interesting coming through. Still like industrial though. Feathers as well. And more people than just Dreamcatcher and their backup dancers. And the like parallel world, right? I forgot about this little creature that I'm still not entirely sure of, other than we've got some like dimension hopping, I guess, in that we had the portals in Maison. But I love the like parallel of the places of destruction and the places that haven't been destroyed yet, of like this, again, the duality like in the sign of in Vision of, hey, we're at a fork in the road and we get to decide what the future looks like. Again, contrast to the coloring of warms and cool tones. Choreo. I love the protection there, like the barrier. Oh, the imagery in this music video is so pretty. The path right through those like columns. Again, the difference in lighting of like cool tones and dark tones. Again, the reds, warnings, blues being more of this place, a color of like peace, tranquility, calmness, and Gio being on the path in front of her that is like this blue cutting through all of this like red and like the industrial kind of like concrete that is going on as well. And just gorgeous with like, the nature imagery coming through of having like animals in this, having flowers and plant life incorporated in, having people incorporated in, even though there's this, I don't know, contrast between them, the people all in white, and then Dami was it, who was the red, walking like facing and walking in different directions. But there's life here, right? This is less desolate than the previous music videos. Having the different weather too. Also having snow with handang pointed. I remember this where I was like the reflection, and it's handang, right? In this one. And I think also we had she's got like the bruises or whatever, again those like parallels to possible worlds. We have like the sparks and stuff around her, and then this is just like the debris. It's almost like the world maybe where they have like the abilities and they have to step in and be protectors, and then this world where they're just average people but happen to be idols. Even this distorted fate, and having this parallel that's happening here. I was also thinking, because I know that it's technically different stories, but also technically all of it's connected in terms of their storylines. But it's handang in OOTD who also has the bruises, right? Just interesting. And the cardigan. Again, this almost being like cycling back. We have like the snow, water, laurel, fauna, I guess, for counting the horse. Even the fireworks, like late in the dark. The stairs too, again, feels very like industrial. The fans, the like wires, like all of this feeling of very like industrial urban environment that has been like distorted into all these like different paths, these winding paths, right? That all the kind of possibilities going forward, different like timelines, different outcomes, right? Almost like different dimensions as a result of decisions. Butterfly effect coming through. Butterflies after I said that. And the card has a butterfly as well. Which, again, we had the card before. I don't know if it's the same card in Maison, but like the butterfly, but then the swords, it almost looks like a tarot card too, which 6 of swords would that be? But swords are usually associated with like mental related stuff, thinking, knowledge. So I think that's interesting as well. And then the, like, dove. Wait for it. Ugh. Hang on, we gotta go back for the vocals. Ugh. I got a little, I got a little misty-eyed. I'm not gonna, this song, it's too good. But having this, like, darkness, the, like, night sky behind with the stars, star imagery being something that Dreamcatcher has put through their work a lot to associate them like connecting with their fans, having that points of light in the darkness, but also like navigation and feeling like you're less alone, reaching out for the white dove as a symbol of like peace. We've had peace imagery in Vision, pulling that forward into this one. Ooh, again, that separation possibility. Ooh. Interesting that we had the barrier or whatever, but at the end of Vision, when they put out the message, it was almost like it was kind of like a graphic to show, hey, this message is spreading all across the world, but it also had this feeling of putting up a barrier that was like red, right? Again, adding to those warm tones to be these places of warning, and then having this taking down that barrier, and then we have all this like greenery, right? We're in this nature like surrounding us with this like kind of industrial center of it, which is also quite interesting. Again, like the possibilities, right? Like I was saying all the way back in the Maison music video, I'm like, okay, I don't trust timelines when it comes to Dreamcatcher storylines and music videos. So this feels almost like a turning back, right? Like getting the card that Gayan had in Maison, but having the moment where it's passed off between, I don't know if it was like her or if it was one of the other members, but being passed between like possibilities, right? Like saying, hey, here are all of the outcomes, the possible, I guess, like futures if we go down different paths, and time to turn back the clock and choose something different and not actually meet that. So we have all the imagery in like Maison and Vision, which are these places of desolation and apocalypse, having these disasters happening. And then Voyage being almost this, okay, we've explored what it looks like if we do not change course. Let's change course before it's too late. Let's not fall into those like kind of parallel worlds with all these kind of splitting off points with the decisions that we're making. Let's go down the path that is actually going to lead to like peace and stability and saving nature, and not be in this place of like conflict and destruction and like separation of power and people, right? It's so fun to go back through and actually really look at some of the stuff. I know I probably still like missed things, and we can have conversations. I don't fully remember what I said initially in my reactions because it's been a minute since I haven't looked at the video since I uploaded them, so I don't know. But fun to go through and be a little more meticulous in pulling apart some of the imagery and connecting it together. It's cool to watch them back to back and be able to pull those threads through it. I loved getting to go back through that, and I definitely feel like I was able to pull more of a story thread throughout those and connect all of the different images and all of that. And I just really like the image, like despite the fact that they very much want to have this like strong image with the Maison of here's the possibility of what could happen if we don't do anything, and being very strong in their messaging for that, but then also having a ton of like hope within that as well, like even having like Dreamcatcher there as almost these like superheroes within that, of them like arriving through like the portal at the beginning and being like, hey, let's fight for this, let's actually protect this. And even thinking of the portals of different dimensions or different timelines, or going through the different possibilities, trying to find like the best one where we make it out of this and it isn't like a complete disaster. So them being these guardians and having the like statue imagery of also feeling both like wealth, at least with like more modern connotations of having like statues or architecture that is related to kind of like ancient civilizations is usually connected to wealth, at least in my head. But also usually statues were people from like stories or historical figures that were like of importance and of power, and having those images of some god imagery and like pantheon imagery in it as well. So there's so much like optimism in this storyline as well, especially with Bon Voyage, of just having this feeling of being able to conquer over it, and just like sonically, and having those like gorgeous vocals coming through, and the message within the lyrics as well, and the music video just saying, hey, we get to choose what the path forward is, right? There's a bunch of different possibilities of where we end up. We don't have to go down the route of disaster. Just because that is a path doesn't mean that is the path we are on if we make decisions now and we change course. So I love that being brought into this, and having the different almost like parallel worlds and like crossing over between the messages between them, so they're able to communicate with each other and again like figure out the right path forward. And I even like some of the imagery of it being like not super clear what the path forward is. I don't think that Dreamcatcher claims to know all of the answers of how to fix this, but they're also like willing to do what they can, right? Use their voice, use their platform, understand that they have the ability to bring a group of people together with their fans, right? And to do something going forward, and to raise the voices of people who do know more about this and are going to be able to give more insight into what that path forward should look like. I love that there's just so much optimism mixed in with this, very realistic understanding that there is in fact an issue. I loved going back through that. It still makes me a little bit sad and nostalgic that I don't have more main discography stuff to go through, but I'm still working through a bunch of backlog stuff, so I find my peace with it. It's fine. We're fine. Everything's fine. But I hope you enjoyed watching that along with me. You can click Let's Plays to go see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe since next time I post a Dreamcatcher reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.